It is year 2 for the Western Michigan Broncos under head coach Lance Taylor. They went 4-8 last season and are looking to get into a bowl game here in 2024. They got a lot of returning talent, including one at the quarterback position. We'll talk about him in just a little bit, but they lose some solid talent offensively and defensively. And overall, you get the feeling they're just one of the tougher teams to gauge in the Mid-American Conference this season. But with all that being said, can Lance Taylor's squad improve in year 2 and get into a bowl game in 2024? You're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. I want to welcome you to my channel and welcome you to prediction season. If you're a fan of a Power 4 team, please go watch your video already. I have a video up on the channel if you are a fan of a Power 4 team. But just thank you so much for watching this video. It helps support my channel in more ways than you can even imagine. And thank you for all of your support during prediction season so far. Go back and watch my other videos. And if you're as big of a college football nerd as I am, you got to hit the subscribe button. You got to ring the bell. We are just about a month away. Oh, can you believe it? A month away from the start of the college football season. And you can help support my channel in many more ways than what I've just said previously. You can like, you can comment, you can share, and anything else you do to interact with the channel will help to support it. And I really appreciate everything that you guys will do in the future and have done already during prediction season. We're almost done, guys. We're diving on into our final Cardinal directional team here out of the state of Michigan in the Mid-American Conference. We've already done Eastern Michigan and Central Michigan. Now it's on to Western Michigan, and we'll take a deep dive into the team's offense, into the defense, and at the end of the video, we will go through their football schedule and give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. A couple more things, though, before we do start. I got to tell you right over here will be the stats the team put up either offensively or defensively last season. And then, of course, for all your viewing pleasures out there, right below the team's logo, I have put the team's coaching staff. Let's start by talking about this offense here in 2024, and it doesn't lose a ton of talent off of it. We'll get to every part of this offense that does leave here in a minute, but you got to talk about how the offense was last season. I mean, 365 yards per game. They honestly were a pretty solid rushing offense. The pass offense saw some inconsistencies at times, and really you saw two quarterbacks get a fair amount of playing, and in fact, three quarterbacks get a fair amount of playing time last season. Two of those were Trayson Bourguet, I hopefully am saying that last name right, I believe that I am, and Jack Salopek. Bourguet had 103 pass attempts for 713 yards, 4 touchdowns and 1 pick, and Salopek 1 touchdown, 2 picks on 63 pass attempts that went for 316 yards. Bourguet had around 55% completion percentage, not the best number, and Salopek had around 66% completion percentage completed. I believe on the dot, 2 out of every 3 passes that he attempted last season, but you do get your primary starter back. He's a former Old Dominion Monarch, and that is Hayden Wolff. 1,505 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions on around 65.5% completion percentage last season. Now, you're going to want to see those numbers for Hayden Wolff take a step up, as he's probably projected to be that full-time starter this season for the Western Michigan Broncos. With Bourguet and Salopek gone, Hayden Wolff is obviously the most experienced, and you could argue the best quarterback here in this room. Mark Konechny does come back, and you do get a freshman in J.D. Davis entering. You could see Konechny play. I'd be shocked if Davis gets into a couple of games this year, although that is definitely not out of the realm of possibility. It is up to Hayden Wolff to command the quarterback position and to command this offense in Kalamazoo this year. And look, we've seen him put up some pretty good numbers during his time there at Old Dominion in 2022. Had a near 3,000-yard season with a 3-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. You want to be more specific, 18 touchdowns, 6 picks in 2022. Let's see that form of Hayden Wolff come back. Can he get 3,000 yards? Can he get 20 touchdowns? He's been really, really close to doing it throughout his career, so we know it's possible. Is it possible in this Lance Taylor system? I'll have to wait and see here in 2024. The talent that is around him, though, let's talk about it. Out of the running back room, you do lose a guy by the name of C.J. Hester, third leading rusher that went for 124 yards, 2 touchdowns on 29 carries last season. But again, that's only 29 carries. You get your top 2 leading rushers off of last year's team back. Jalen Buckley is back. Had a 1,000-yard season last year, 183 carries for 1,003 yards and 10 touchdowns. And for all you math nerds, that's 5.3 yards per carry. Second leading rusher, not as good of a yards per carry guy, only 3.8 yards per carry, but still rushed for 475 yards, broke the plane of the end zone 5 times, Rams. It is Zaire Abdus Salam. And again, hopefully saying that last name right. You also do return Keyshawn King, and Jaden Nixon is a high profile transfer that is coming over from Oklahoma State and could provide and probably will provide some really, really good carries out of the running back room for Western Michigan this season. Wide receiver room, well, I do believe, yes, your second leading receiver is going to be gone from last year. 389 yards on 35 catches and 2 touchdowns for Leroy Thomas last season. Let's just go right on into the tight end room there as well. So 2 losses out of the pass catching room. Austin Hentz will be gone out of the tight end room. Second leading receivers among tight ends, 269 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 25 catches. Even though he was second in receiving yards among tight ends, he did lead tight ends in both receptions and touchdowns last season. Both of those latter 2 guys I just mentioned have graduated, and I don't think I mentioned that CJ Hester will be playing for a new program here in 2024. So the pass catching room, what comes back and what comes in here for this team? Well, you still get your leading rusher back. Even though he only broke the plane of the end zone 1 time last season, Kenneth Womack is going to be the lead option again for this passing attack that obviously Hayden Wolf is going to lead. Had an extra M in that name, so I do apologize. But Kenneth Womack had 691 yards on 76 catches, and again, just 1 lone touchdown for him last season. You do get other guys like Anthony Sambucci, Malike Diudane, and Cam Hedgecock all coming back here to this offense, while you get some transfers coming in. Devon Mortimer is in, as well as Jordan Parker, and both of those guys probably going to end up playing some pretty solid time here in this wide receiver room. They're going to get some pretty solid reps here. Mortimer's over from ULM, while Jordan Parker is coming over from New Mexico State, and the mass exodus of players that are leaving that program after Jerry Kill and a lot of other players, again, are gone. Tight end room, Blake Bosma and Caden Morris are coming in. Sorry, not coming in, coming back, I should say. And yes, that is Caden with 2 ends, and Chris Tootle is coming in through the transfer portal. Tootle is coming over from NC State, so a Power 4 transfer coming over to play for Western Michigan this season in the tight end room. No notable transfers to talk about in the offensive line room, leaving or coming in, so it's just pure rinse and replace here for Western Michigan this year. Really, only one notable loss that I could find. Trevor Campbell is gone due to graduation, and again, that's not to say that no guys entered through the portal or no guys left through the transfer portal. It's just no guys that were notable to me. So your notable guys coming back to this offensive line room, combination of these 6 guys, in my mind, will be the starting offensive line for the Broncos this season. Jacob Gideon, John Hofer, Adam Vandervest, Addison West, Jack Sherwin, and Ted Kushi. Those 6 guys, combination of them, should be your starting offensive line for the Broncos here in 2024. And now it's the fun part. Let's talk overall about what this offense could potentially look like here in 2024. Hayden Wolf at quarterback, especially if he can get back to 2022 form, especially if he can stay healthy, is going to provide you, I think, some pretty good things out of the quarterback position. A not really talked about player all that much while he was at Old Dominion. Here at Western Michigan, again, probably not going to get that super big national media attention, but if you're a fan of Mid-American Conference football, you have to talk about Hayden Wolf this season. He is a big key impact player, especially if Western Michigan is going to want to improve both in the eye test and record-wise from where they sat last season. He's got a lot of really good skill position players in the running back, wide receiver, and tight end room, and you probably want to ask the offensive line to take it a step up a little bit, as Hayden Wolf got sacked 18 times last season, and they allowed 30 sacks overall last year, again, because Bourget and Salopek got a lot of playing time last season as well. They could be a little bit better in the run game, 3.9 yards per carry. Again, not a bad number by any means at all, but this is a rushing attack that is going to be the forefront of the offense. They rushed the ball almost 100 more times than they threw the ball last season, so if Hayden Wolf can provide you good quarterback play, the run game can be really good. Hey, this is an offense that definitely should see their improvements in many ways here in 2024. Again, you're going to need pieces on the offensive line to fit in and to play a little bit better than what they did last season as well. You take a look at this defensive front here, or I should say the defensive side of the football, and it definitely also needs to see its improvements this season. It didn't get off the field at an effective rate on third down. They allowed 45.6% of third down conversions last season. 234 yards per game through the air, almost 400 yards per game overall, almost 32 points per game overall, and you're losing a lot of really good talent off what overall, now the statistics might not tell you this, but overall was a very talented defense last season, and it shows because they're going to have a couple players playing on Sundays. One of them from the defensive line is Marshawn Nealon. Can't overstate how important of a defensive player he was to this team. Tied for the team lead in sacks last year, leading tackler among defensive linemen last season, 57 tackles, 4.5 sacks, and you're going to be missing his production greatly here out of the defensive line room. And Joshua Nobles has run out of eligibility, and he has since graduated. A guy that had 13 tackles and 2 sacks last season. So, again, more of a depth piece on the defensive line, but still a very notable part to the defensive line. He will be gone out of this room, and he will be missed. Okay, so what do you return in your defensive line? Well, you still get back some really good talent, including these first 3 names I'm about to mention right here. All of them were back to back to back on the tackles leaderboard last season. That's Mason Nelson, Isaiah Green, and Corey Walker. All of them very impactful on this defensive line last year. Nelson had 3 sacks a season ago, Walker 2.5 sacks, and Green 2 sacks a season ago. So all 3 of those guys are going to be highly impactful players on the defensive front yet again. You do get Tyson Lee, who had 16 tackles coming back, and a couple other guys I could have mentioned here as well. But I do want to talk about all the transfers they brought in, because they brought in a ton of really, really talented transfers. Popeye Williams and Rodney McGraw are both coming over from Louisville, a program that obviously Lance Taylor has some connections to, and Ontario Thompson is coming over from the Iowa Hawkeyes. We know how they produce defensive players. Those are going to be 3 really impactful names in the defensive front for the Broncos this season. Quickly go through the linebacker room, as Nate Norris has gone due to graduation, and Quentin Cannon is going to be gone due to the transfer portal. Now, Nate Norris was a top 5 tackler last year, had over 60 tackles, did have a sack last year, and just overall a very impactful piece in this linebacker room. But you get a lot of other big, valuable key pieces in the linebacker room coming back. Damari Roberson and Jacob Wahlberg are both coming back here. Those 2 guys were top 5 tacklers for the team last year, 68 and 65 tackles respectively, and had a ton of passes defended from the linebacker position as well. Donald Willis tied for that team lead in sacks last year with 4.5 of them. Boone Bonema will also be coming back, and you do get a guy in from the portal in Dominic Moon. I believe he's a Purdue transfer. I'll fact check that. Yes, he is a Purdue transfer, and you could see him get some pretty significant playing time this season as well. Defensive back room, this is the other player that's going to be gone to the NFL, and he deserves it. It's Kenny H. Lovely, and apologies if I'm mispronouncing that name, but he was an exceptional corner for this team last year. 48 tackles, 5 pass defended, tied for the team lead with 2 picks, and overall just a very, very talented piece that will be deeply missed. And Anthony Rumpf is also a name that will be leaving the secondary, and he is off through the transfer portal. 8 tackles, 4 pass defended, 1 pick a season ago. And out of the safety room, well, you do lose Savion Brown, a fairly notable loss there in that safety room. 16 tackles, 2 passes defended for him last season. So you talk about what comes back in this defensive back room, still a lot of very, very good talent. Aaron Wofford, however you pronounce that last name, was the 2nd leading tackler on the team last year. 72 tackles, 5 passes defended, and also, again, was tied for that team lead with 2 picks last season. Bilal Cohn, again, apologies for mispronunciations. He is coming back. He led the team with 8 passes defended last year, and Deshaun Bussell will also be back to this team as well. Isaiah Paul enters through the transfer portal in the cornerback room, and when you take a look at the safety room, Tate Hollick, the team's leading tackler, where there should be an A, not an O. He is back, also tied for that team lead with 2 interceptions last year. Angelo Stockstill and Jacob Zerna back as well. Ryan Raybuck does enter through the portal. And kickers are people too, guys. We got to show them some love. There's going to be a punting battle this year because Carson Voss left through the transfer portal. He was the primary punter last year. So Ryan Milmore or Anthony Beacom, that's going to be your primary punter this year. They'll battle it out for the punting duties, while Palmer Domsky does come back to be the primary place kicker for the Broncos here in 2024. Overall, when you talk about this defense, I like a lot of the talent they have. They return a lot of good pieces in that secondary, return a lot of good pieces on that defensive front, the linebacker room. Again, you talk about the Mid-American Conference, you talk about some really, really good linebacking groups. Take a look at Miami, Ohio. Toledo just put Dallas Scant in the NFL. Of course, Eastern Michigan just lost 2 really good linebackers, but I mean, all throughout this conference, there are good linebackers to go about. It's guys that left, guys that are still coming back, and most notably guys that are still here. Western Michigan's got some really good linebackers this season. They've got some really good defensive players. Hopefully the defense can see itself turn around here in 2024, which leads me into the schedule here for the Western Michigan Broncos. Okay, there it is. A little delayed reaction for my slide change. Hey, any game at home is going to be underlined. Well, any game on the road is in italics or that slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game that I think the Broncos are going to win fairly easily. Any game in yellow should be a close competitive game in my mind sight, but it is a game I still see the the Broncos being able to win. Any game in red is a loss, and I think they start out with two of them here, no question, to start out 2023. And honestly, the non-conference schedule here, I think, is going to hurt Western Michigan more than it helps them. Now, of course, if they're able to pull off some wins, then obviously it's going to really help them. But you're going to have more road games than home games for Western Michigan this season. You got 7 games on the road, 3 of them of which are coming in non-conference play, and I don't think any of those road games in conference play or out of conference play are going to go particularly well for Western Michigan this year. So maybe a little spoiler alert ahead, but I just said they're not getting wins in their first 2 games. That's because you got to play 2 Big Ten teams. On the road against Wisconsin, a rematch of a Cotton Bowl matchup, I think in 2016 or 2017, one of those 2 years, can't quite remember off the top of my head, but I think people are sleeping on Wisconsin this year. Luke Fickell, I think, is going to get it figured out here in year 2. Tyler Van Dyke coming in, I think, will find himself in the right offensive system. Wisconsin's going to play tough-nosed defense, and they're way too talented for the Western Michigan Broncos. And Ohio State, I mean, this one needs no explanation. The Buckeyes are one of the most loaded rosters in the entire country. They're going to be one of the best teams in the entire country, one of the favorites to go win the whole dang college football playoff. Of course, it's expanded to 12 teams this year. Buckeyes and Badgers both beat the Broncos in road games for Western Michigan. However, the first win of the 2024 season will be picked up in week 3 against Bethune-Cookman, an FCS level program, before your first bye week of the season. So you've been able to have your transfer portal pieces that are coming in here, see 2 really good teams. They have a win under their belt, and hopefully they can build some momentum, but you have to go on the road and play the Marshall Thundering Herd. Now, Marshall is going to be a very, very good team here this season, and I have no worries about Cole Pennington at quarterback. I know there are some people around that program and around college football in general that are kind of panicking a little bit on Cole Pennington based off of what we saw from him last season. I think no touchdowns, 6 picks, some very, very bad stat line along those numbers. But I do not panic about Cole Pennington. He has a good group of wide receivers around him. The defense should see its improvements this season for Marshall as well, as it returns a lot of good talent, brings a lot of good talent in through the portal. They're in a really good division in the Sun Belt Conference. I think they're going to be a really good team this year, and I think they're going to be better than Western Michigan. Again, I think Cole Pennington is going to be able to find himself this season. The wide receiver room, it just got a complete overhaul through the transfer portal and a lot of really good weapons that I think Cole Pennington is going to be able to form some chemistry with. And overall, I see Marshall just being the better team than Western Michigan here in 2024 as the Thundering Herd get the win. So 1 and 3, I should say, 1 out of 4 in non-conference play for the Broncos before you enter conference play, and you start out with a road game against the Ball State Cardinals. Now, I've been on record saying that I'm not a huge fan of what Ball State has going for it this season, but I do think Western Michigan is just going to be one of those teams this year that sees their struggle on the road, and it's not like Ball State is devoid of talent. They have some really good pieces here. Caden Samanza is going to be that quarterback for them this year. I like a lot of the pieces they have in their running back room. They do return some very impactful wide receivers from last year, and when you take a look at the defensive end, well, you got 2 or 3 defensive front transfers as well as 1 or 2 secondary members coming in through the portal that I think are going to end up playing some pretty good football for them, not to mention a lot of good returning talent from last year back. Ball State's still going to end up being a fairly competitive team this season, especially with a team like Western Michigan, and I got them being able to win that game. However, Western Michigan is going to be able to pick up a win here against the Akron Zips, a team that I just don't see faring well here in 2024. The Akron rebuild is still one that's going to take a little bit of time. They've seen their good things here and there year to year, and they'll see their share of good things this season, but overall, it's just not going to lead to a lot of good for the Zips this year, and that's going to be win number 2 of the season for Western Michigan. Another winnable game on the road here, much like that one against Ball State, is on the road against the Buffalo Bulls, a team that, again, I know I've said I don't really think that Buffalo is going to be that great this year. Buffalo, not a team I'm really vibing with here in 2024, although I still think they're going to be able to get this win against the Western Michigan Broncos. Western Michigan, again, I'll say it again, I just see being a very vulnerable team here on the road, and I know Buffalo is losing Cole Snyder, their quarterback. Obviously, he is going over to Eastern Michigan. He's transferring in conference, and a lot of other pieces are gone here off that team, but you bring in some pretty talented wide receiver transfers. The defense returns some pretty good talent from last year, good mix of experienced veteran talent and the young guys that are sort of the up-and-comers with this Buffalo team. And I do think they're going to be able to pull off this win here as Western Michigan's road struggles continue this season. Granted, now they get 2 straight games at home, the first time all season here in week 9, and it technically isn't even 2 straight games at home because you have a bye week sandwiched in between there, but I think they win both of them. You beat the Kent State Golden Flashes, a team that honestly I like a lot better than last year's version of this Kent State team. They got some really good pieces in each level there of the offense. Gavin Garcia in the backfield. I like Krayshawn McCray as a wide receiver. They have there's some really good defensive pieces, most notably in on that defensive front seven. Tommy Ula Ulatowski will be taking over quarterback for that team this year. I think they can see their improvements this year, but this Western Michigan team has it at home. They're not going to struggle as much at home as they do on the road this year, and suchly, they will beat the NIU Huskies. One of these sort of games where, look, I think NIU is going to be the more talented team than Western Michigan this season, but Western Michigan has enough pieces coming back, and Hayden Wolf will have some good games this season. They have good offensive skill position pieces. The defensive pieces, I think, match up well with what Northern Illinois is going to be able to do offensively this year. And the first action game will be a win for the Western Michigan Broncos. However, again, road struggles continue. They lose 2 in a row. The Bowling Green Falcons are going to be a talented team this year. Connor Bazelek is back, and even though they lose a lot in the wide receiver room, you get some talented transfers to come in to fill those gaps. And then you take a look at the running back room. Terrion Stewart is back. Some really good defensive pieces are back. Bowling Green, if this is a year for Bowling Green, if there's any year for Bowling Green to make a jump, it is this season. It has to happen now, and Bowling Green should beat Western Michigan. I think Central Michigan will be able to do it as well. Central Michigan gets some good returning pieces. Bert Emanuel at quarterback is a guy that I really like. Some good offensive, defensive pieces come back, and then the game against Eastern Michigan to close out the season. So you get your 2 other cardinal directional schools in Central and Eastern Michigan to close out the season for Western Michigan, and I think no matter what happens, they split those games. Those are 2 teams with Central and Eastern Michigan that, much like Western Michigan, are going to push for a bowl game. Each team is going to be fighting for its life to try to reach the postseason, but in this scenario, I have Eastern Michigan already reaching it. Western Michigan's going to get a win to close out the year, but it is not enough to get into a bowl game. 5-7 is what I got here, and again, like I said, non-conference play holds it back. I think they fare out fairly well here in conference play, but I ultimately see them falling just short of a postseason berth here in 2024. But I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. And in the next video, we'll be talking about the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. Goodbye.